Good evening to you. Mark Stott with HurricaneTrack.com here. It is Tuesday, the 21st of September, 2021. Finally getting to put this together. It's been a really stormy day here, off and on. Power outages, power flickering, power surges, internet off and on. I should have just stayed in bed all day. But anyway, it's good to be here. Let's talk about what's going on in the tropics. Things are busy now with a couple of kind of anemic-looking storms out there. Well, one used to be a storm. Now it's just a depression, but whatever, stuff to talk about currently, and I think more importantly what is coming up. And you know what I'm talking about. That is Invest Area 98L. All right, so let's get on with it, see what's going on. Let's take a look at the National Hurricane Center homepage. Here we have the remnants, the leftovers, the depression that was once Tropical Storm Peter. Very strong tropical upper tropospheric trough did develop over here, cut off low from it, strong upper level winds cutting across Peter, and it never had a chance. That was very well modeled days and days ago, and Peter didn't really stand much of an opportunity to strengthen much, nor was it going to be able to come towards the United States and the Bahamas and vicinity. That just wasn't in the cards. Elsewhere, this area is the leftovers of Odette, believe it or not, kind of hanging around in the North Atlantic. Here we have Rose, also just barely hanging on, pressure at 1,008 millibars, so it's not very strong. This general area has just been kind of unfavorable lately. We've had a suppressed phase of what we call a convectively coupled Kelvin wave. So a lot more of air kind of coming together and sinking, converging, sinking air, dry air. Just not a very favorable environment overall, strong upper level winds, that kind of thing. But that looks like it's going to change. The pattern's going to kind of flip around as we end the month and head towards October. And with that, a good segue to 98L down here, which has a very high probability of development. Basically, 90% chance here, almost unanimous model support. It's also at a lower latitude, straddling about the 10-degree latitude line right there. So it's fairly far to the south. And as it moves across, it looks like it's going to develop, and it'll become our next named storm, which will be Sam. And I'm fairly confident that that will happen. And you folks over here in the Northeast Caribbean are going to have to watch this closely. There's always this opportunity that it hooks a ride out into the Atlantic like this. There is going to be a hole, an area, an escape route, if you will. We'll show you that in a minute. But if it doesn't do that, if it doesn't take that trip out early, sort of catch that first bus, it may have a shot to come in here and impact our friends in the islands over time. And we'll take a look at that in just a little bit as we progress through the various tabs for today. So the satellite animation late this afternoon, early evening. A lot going on out there, lots of areas of interest. This would be again the remnants of Peter, now a tropical depression. And you can see those strong upper level winds just cutting all across this area. Same thing with Rose, the center of circulation here. It's well exposed. Strong upper level winds cutting this off. Not able to allow these systems to wrap those thunderstorms around that low level center and keep the thunderstorms going. Without that, you can't lower the air pressure, and you can't generate the heat that's needed around the eye, etc., or any eye if it was going to get developed. And these systems just fall apart. They're pulsing, always struggling against the background state, which is not very favorable in those areas, which is interesting because all of this north of about 20 degrees latitude right through there, that's a pretty good straight line, isn't it? South of there, way down here, is 98L. And look, the convection is starting to pop up with it as we get into the evening hours here. It's already dark out in this part of the world, so we're reaching the time when these things start to become more convectively active. They do so at night, and they take advantage of true latent heat out there instead of any kind of heating of the day. They're not competing with any rising motion of the atmosphere due to the sun reaching the Earth's surface with its rays and heating that up and creating instability. Nope. At the nighttime hours, these systems rely completely upon the energy that is stored in the ocean. And out across this region, that energy is plentiful and vast, and this system has a lot to take advantage of. A couple clues with it already. Well-developed circulation. It kind of has that S shape to it overall, starting to come together. this will almost certainly be our next name storm. And again, that name will be Sam. So here's an interesting visible satellite animation from late this afternoon towards the sunset time of Peter. Probably do have some tropical storm force winds in gusts in any of these thunderstorms over here. A vigorous circulation, but more of a depression than a tropical storm right now. Definitely of interest to any maritime interests in the area. Pleasure boaters, anybody out there on one of those expensive yachts or big sailboats, any type of commercial vessels out there, definitely need to keep an eye on this. That's a lot of lightning, and these bands, these tendrils that are trying to go in and keep this circulation going. Remember, this is a process. It wants to keep going until it can't, this physical process, and it's got that strong upper level flow going against it. You've got the low level center there, the vorticity at the surface trying to keep itself going until it can't. And it's just kind of interesting to watch as these systems evolve. And I can show you what it looks like. This is from Brent's camera that he hosts for us down in St. John. This is from earlier today. That is one of those tendrils right there. That's what I call it. One of those feeder bands from earlier today. That's what that looks like. And it was coming in towards St. John and vicinity, the Virgin Islands there. That's what one of those looks like. You can see that upward motion, the clouds going up, but it's not enough energy out there to combat the strong upper level winds that were coming along. Those low clouds are just a couple thousand feet above the surface. Those are not the upper level winds. But just interesting that you can actually see on this shot one of those right there going across the Virgin Islands. That's what that was. So thought I would show it to you. Just a neat little verification. The rain coming in the afternoon hours there from down in St. John. All right, so what we're really going to have to pay attention to here over the next few days is this area right here. This is 98L. Here's the depression that is Peter. Here's Rose out here. This is a lot of energy that's kind of cut off in the atmosphere from the leftovers of Odette. Big old chunk of high pressure over the northwest Atlantic. Another large area of high pressure sitting over the northeastern Atlantic. And if none of these larger pieces moved, if they were stationary like mountains that didn't budge, and what would be Sam developed, it would move on and find this hole and go on out. That's not what happens, though. The atmosphere is constantly changing. And, I mean, you know that. I'm just reminding you, that's all. So, yes, we're going to see some changes here. And it's interesting because each of these three players out here will have some bearing on what happens here with Sam in the long run, I do believe. So let's take a look at the GFS out to about day 5. All right, we'll go 120 hours out. And there's the GFS. This is from 12Z today. So it's from this morning, the morning synoptic run. And there's 98L. It becomes a well-formed cyclone in the model. And our other features, the leftovers of Peter up here somewhere, Rose and whatever from Odette, you know, a lot of energy up here kind of hammering away at the subtropical ridge. So there's just not as much pressure from the higher latitudes kind of keeping what would be Sam held down in the deep tropics, at least on the GFS. That's what that is suggesting here. And so this is day 5. Let's move it on out another few days from there. There's day 6, there's day 7 and 8 right there, and we're going to take it out to day 10. So at day 10, you see where this ends up, right there. So a healthy hurricane in the model, no doubt about it. There's Bermuda right there. But it takes it and it turns it north, and it's like, okay, see ya. It's what they call, and people in social media, a fish storm. And that's a pretty easy curve away. And, you know, why does it do that? It's pretty easy to see there. Let's take it out to the 240 mark. High pressure over, whoops, try again, Mark. High pressure over here, high pressure over here, maybe a little bit of high pressure there. Just not enough. It's fractured. It's not thick enough to keep Sam to be at a lower latitude. That's the GFS solution. What about the Euro? And I know, being that I'm putting this together late in the afternoon, early evening here, depending on where you're watching it, that you already know the outcome. But I'm just, kind of examining it for you. Again, European ECMWF, same time frame, 12Z. And this has got a big old chunk of high pressure over the northwest Atlantic. There's the one over the northeast Atlantic. Odette's remnants in there. There's Peter, there's Rose, there's 98L. So everything lines up at the analysis. They kind of match. Where they diverge is out in time. There's 24, 48, 72, 96, 120. And it's at this point that they really start to look different. Let's back this up to about hour 120 as well. The differences between the two, the Euro has this energy much more to the north. The ridge is starting to build back in. And you can even see that right through here. Just a little bit more in the way of a thicker air mass, if you will. It's just more of it down here, kind of blocking SAM to be, not allowing it to gain as much latitude as the GFS is eventually going to allow. They're both almost identical at day 5. But let's hop ahead. That's day 6 on the Euro. This is day 6 here on the GFS. Again, they're almost identical. But then day 7 on the Euro here, there's day 7 right there versus day 7 on the GFS. Again, pretty close, but enough difference there between the two, and it's the same exact map extent. That doesn't change. GFS is more north and east. Euro is a little bit more south and west. More ridging here in the European model. And that's building in, kind of holding this down there. This is thicker air, and it's not allowing what would be SAM to gain the latitude that the GFS is showing. And then the GFS takes it out between those ridges there. This one here kind of fractured, and away it goes out into the Atlantic there. You see a nice gentle curve. The European, on the other hand, doesn't show this scenario. There's day 7, there's day 8, 9, and 10. Much more formidable, big area of high pressure down here, really dominating the Atlantic. Another giant chunk of high pressure coming in through here. Some troughing right through here. That's a weakness there. But this is probably too far south to feel this weakness. So, this is 10 days away. Yes, that's a long way out. But this is what we have to watch for. We know the certainties here, almost certainties, probably going to have a named storm out of 98L. That's one of the near certainties. These giant air masses, these two huge pieces of high pressure that the European is showing in particular, those are pretty big puzzle pieces. Now, this is 10 days out, and subtle differences could make a big difference, in terms of where this ends up. If there's just a little bit less ridging, then this gains more latitude, and it could find that escape route. But this is showing us, I think, the warning signs that even though it's late September now, and this is 10 days out, we're talking about very early October here, hurricane season is still very much in full swing. European even has a couple of other impulses moving across. Where? At low latitudes, at 10 days out. That one, and maybe even some energy over here. So there's a lot of hurricane season left. We got to watch what happens with the evolution of 98L for sure. You see the full run there. So just out to the next 5 days, this is about as reasonable a time frame as we can look at and say, all right, we've got pretty good confidence in that. Both models at that time frame are almost, that's remarkable agreement. You got to admit, they're almost right on top of each other. It's from that point on, really day 7 on, that there is divergence. And I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows for sure. But we got to watch this. It could possibly become a problem for our friends down there in the islands. And, so we need to take note of that. Other people taking note, and I think this is important to point this out, our good friends over here at Storm 2K have mentioned this site a lot. People aggregate and collect the information. They discuss it in very reasonable fashion in a nice forum. And you can see the same thing here. Just another representation, this model chart from weathermodels.com. And you can see the outline of that ridging there in the European model. This is at a week out, pretty strong here. This is almost like a mountain. It's literally a mountain of air. This is where that mountain gets chiseled away a little bit. Lower heights in the atmosphere, thinning it out. In other words, if this line extended, let me take it away. If this extended all the way out like this, then this would move much more west. That's that high pressure that we talk about, that deep layer ridging. That's what the Euro is showing. It's got it. It's kind of locked in on that. The GFS, not so much. And you can see different people showing different modeling here as it approaches the islands over time. So yeah, people need to watch this closely. They're talking about Luis that lives down in Puerto Rico. That people are paying attention, and that part of looking out in the future is healthy. I totally buy into that I would rather people have this knowledge to be able to look and see, oh boy, long-range guidance and suggesting that a hurricane passes right through the Virgin Islands. That's where Brent is. It doesn't mean they need to go out and panic or start worrying or have nightmares about it, but you do need to pay attention. This is a sign I better start watching. We have a lot of stuff going on in our everyday lives, in the news, in our world, right? Everybody's different. This is a time to say, hey, look, hello, tropics are still here. We need to pay attention. And different people talking about different aspects of it. As you can see, the modeling, and there's a good representation. This is what I like about this site. Different points of view, different models that people post, different subscriptions they have, access, whatever. That's that big mountain of air. It looks like a big old fried egg, doesn't it? That would be like the center of it. That's the big, huge mountain of air. If this is larger, this goes more west and south. If this is smaller, if it's shifted over to the east, it's more north and east like that. Lots and lots of what-ifs over the next week to 10 days, and you can bet we will be on top of it. One thing that is concerning, I will admit, water temperatures out this way definitely above the long-term average. And in fact, the area where Sam to be would start to really blossom looks to me like it's close to 1 degree Celsius above that long-term average. And that warm water extends all the way up relative to average here. These are anomalies, departures from the long-term average, very warm throughout the main development region all the way over to Florida. If this is the path this takes, it has a lot of warm water to work with, not only in reality, the actual sea surface temperatures, but that word there, the anomalies. These are positive anomalies through here, meaning that they are warmer than average. And I will point out one other thing. This warm anomaly area in the North Atlantic, to me, over my years of watching this stuff, argues for a larger, more inflated ridge. It doesn't definitely mean it has to happen, because you can get a pretty strong cold front coming down, and it'll knock that ridge out of place, absolutely. But we're only talking about early October here. This is not the end of October going into November, where true, deep, longitudinal Arctic air masses are coming down, where you see these fronts dip all the way down almost to the Yucatan. Yes, there is a front coming that's going to bring some beautiful fall weather to parts of the lower 48 in the next few days, but that's a far cry from what we see in November. And all that warm water relative to average, at least from my experiences in the past, tends to favor stronger ridging over the Atlantic. So we'll see. This might be a case where the GFS has a good handle on it all along, and it kind of follows a similar path to Larry, just a little bit more west maybe, or it misses that fork in the road and heads towards the Antilles or something in between. We will have to wait and see. At least it's got people's attention. I think that's a good thing. People are going to be watching, so they won't be caught off guard, and that's good. Don't forget Twitter, @HurricaneTrack. We're also on YouTube and Facebook there, as you can see. Just reminding you, in case you're new, maybe this is the first time you've seen one of my videos, those are the 3 social media platforms that we tackle the most anyway, and then we are supported by the awesome people through Patreon around the globe. Even have this little QR code if you want to scan that and learn more about that project. Crowdfunded, yep, that's what we do. And it's over 1,000 people strong now. And it really grew over the last couple of years, and it allows me and my team to do more than ever before. And it's a good thing. So check it out if you are interested in becoming part of our Patreon crowdfunded community. All right? Anyway, it's evening time. Usually I don't put these out this late, but it's been a day. Nothing wrong, no big deal, no problems. Just one of those days where it took a little longer to get this done. So what I'll do to kind of make up for that is in the morning, after I get the kids shipped off to school, I'll do a morning update and then an afternoon update as we see what goes on tomorrow, because a lot of people are going to be watching this, and rightfully so. Once Peter and Rose truly clear the pattern, all eyes will be on 98L, and for good reason. Sam. Yep, Sam is coming. All right, that's it from me. Have a great rest of your Tuesday evening. As always, thanks for tuning in from whatever device you happen to be doing so from. It's great to have you. I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll talk to you again tomorrow morning.